I was doing magic. Um, I hope, Mark, do they work right now? I was throwing a curveball to my dear colleague. uh, we does I think I get it right this time.
Check.
Okay, while we're waiting, we have just a couple minutes, not so much to debrief about the STEM, but maybe I could just get you to type in the chat. How was your experience now working in a small group where you could actually talk and interact and not just hear us? You know, we tend to be tops down. We're teachers. How was it when you actually could break into small groups? Could you maybe type in the chat since we are... Yes. Okay, Patrick liked being able to speak personally. Jeremy was still typing, but that's okay, typing personally. He might have had... did you find the team helpful? If you got stuck with communicating with one another, sometimes I think having somebody who can type... Okay, John talked about 3D printing and enjoyed it. That's, again, these things kind of get grouped under STEM, but there's no reason that these things aren't a lot more universal. It's just we've kind of put it into the STEM bucket. And we typed more than we spoke. Traditionally or originally, people did come in and just type because the voice and speech features only came in, I'd say, about 5 years ago. You know, and if you go to any international groups, you're going to find that they often just type. They text one another. When you go to sign into Kitely, you'll see up come a list of meetings that are going on. We'd encourage you to join some of those. But I'm trying to read. Eduardo decided together they were going to review SketchUp. Okay, we mostly lost track of time. I hope that's because you were having a good time. And we want to use these environments to get out of the hierarchical, teacher-driven, and get more towards students talking. And we do try to do that in our classes. It's just our residency tends to be a little top-down. And yes, Richard, you were actually able to talk to one another. And we're probably going to move back into the mode now for Mark Lewis, who's truly our expert in Unity. And he's going to entice you as, oh, and you talked about immersion. We'll encourage you to, when we finish up today, stay on. As you know, this island, Marion, is my workshop island. You can always come here. It's always open to students. It's open to everybody. And I think come here and meet with people. If you take our courses, you might be creating your own islands. We will scaffold you into how you build islands. So you don't have to feel intimidated if you're not quite artistic enough yet. We'll be bringing that in. So this is to set a high bar for you to come in and help us get to the next step. In the meantime, though, I'm going to throw the baton over to Mark, who will be concluding our conference. Thank you all for coming. I'll keep on putting out the link. We would certainly appreciate you helping us find ways to keep on improving this process. And I'll turn off my mic, and I've been trying to record this, so there should be a recording that we can send out later as well. And Mark, I think I fixed that for you now. And anyway, so I'm turning my mic off, and it's all yours, Mark.
Okay. I'm hopefully going to be able to control this without too many glitches. So I called this game design and the Unity game engine from noob to network games, because what I'd like to try to do today is to give you sort of a path to follow if you're not familiar with Unity or if you've just started out with it, to get to a point where you can actually make a network game that you can play on two different computers and play over the internet. It would be a very simple game, and it uses the tutorials that are in Unity. But we'll talk about that. Now, let's see if this changes. Yes. So this is the URL for the PowerPoint, and you can download it if you want to. I suggest doing that if you can run them both. If you have two screens and you can run these both side by side, that would be good. Some of the screens I have in this PowerPoint there's some detailed information that might be hard for you to see. So if not, you can review it later and just watch it here. Let's see. So the next slide here. So what is Unity? It's basically a complete package for creating games and all kinds of related applications. It's one of the most popular game design engines, which means that it supplies you with everything all in one place that you need to create a game or to create some other kind of application, such as a simulation. It is used in approximately, according to their statistics, 50% of games worldwide. You often see them. I have an iPhone, so I often see games that are built in Unity. On my iPhone, it pops up the little Unity screen. The other engines that are out there that are popular is UDK or Unreal Engine, and also you'll see, if you're a gamer, you'll probably see CryEngine as another one. That's sort of, I would say, Unreal is number 2, and CryEngine is the 3 or a 4. There's a couple others out there too. There's also some open source game engines as well that are out there. The problem with those is you're probably not going to have the support structures that you need. So I would steer you towards Unity. For one thing, it's a skill that many employers look for. So if you know how to use it, you might be able to actually get some work using it in a small game company or a large game company. Let's see. Don't think that advanced. Sorry.
It could just be a little laggy.
So this is just an example of some of the games. So this is just an example of some of the games that it's on their site. You can go look at this. There's a variety of different games that they feature. Some of them are full 3D, some are more illustrative, some are more 2D. They used to develop, I think people often think of game engines as developing things like first-person shooters, but you can have platformers, you can have top-downs, you can have every kind of game that you want to develop in Unity. It does both 2D and 3D without a problem. Let's see if I can get to the next slide. Don't think that advanced. So again, this is just showing. There we go. So again, this is just showing some of the types of games that you can develop in Unity. 2D mobile games, very popular, and now, of course, they're also doing instant games for small messaging apps and other types of platforms. And then for education, it's used widely. For education, it's used widely. There's one of the newer technologies is the HoloLens, which is a mixed reality. You can see that in the picture, there's a gentleman wearing the HoloLens. It's basically a Windows 10 computer with a heads-up display on it, and it imposes an augmented reality on top of reality, and you can interact with it. It's probably the most integrated AR platform out there, but you can also use it, of course. I think you heard how you can use it for other forms of AR using mobile phones and tablets and that kind of thing. It can be used for all kinds of VR applications, which for a variety of different VR products, all the way from Google Cardboard up to the more sophisticated ones, HTC Vive, anything else that's out there. And then, of course, it can be used for simulations. It doesn't have to be just used for games. You can actually build complex simulations that could be used for training purposes. Now, for Unity, the thing that you want to do is you don't have to pay for Unity. So don't get the Plus plan or the Pro plan. You don't need that to get started. They have a personal free version. It's good for, I think it's 100K of sales, which of course for students that's really not applicable. You're probably not going to be selling your games right away. But if you do develop a game and you start a company and you're an independent game design company, you can sell your games up to $100,000 a year, I believe it is, before you have to pay them anything. So again, that is a full version of Unity Game Engine. So you can do anything in the personal version that you can do with the other versions, the Pro and the Plus version. So it's not limited in the way some other versions of game engines are. Like for example, Game Maker offers a free version, but you can only build just so much in it, and then you have to actually pay for it to really start to use it as a real tool. The other major platforms are also following that model. I believe Unreal, I'm not sure what their cutoff is, but Unreal also has a similar plan, and I believe the CryEngine is the same. So if you did want to learn those platforms, you could also get them for free. So this is the Unity Game Interface, which is if you haven't used 3D programs or you haven't used programs like this, it can appear fairly intimidating. I'm not going to go into too much about how to use this. It's really kind of the scope of this talk, but I placed a simple cube in the middle just to sort of give you some idea that that's sort of where your workspace is in the middle. That's where you build things. And as you build things out, on the left-hand side, you see that the cube is highlighted. That's where all of your game objects would appear. It looks similar to Blender, and I just point out that Blender puts a cube in the middle when you open it up, usually, unless you set it otherwise, whereas Unity, you just end up with a blank screen. And then on the right-hand side, there's an inspector that has all of the different attributes that a particular game object would have. So, for example, you could set the position of an object. This is at the center of this world, which is 0, 0, 0. But I could move that around on the X, Y, and Z axes, which you see those little arrows correspond to the X, Y, and Z axes. You could scale it, you could rotate it, you could add materials to it, so it's not just a gray cube. You could turn it into a rock or a sand or tile or glass. Any kind of, it could be a cube of water if you wanted to do that. So let's. All right. So for getting past that sort of intimidating interface, Unity offers a lot of free training. And it's a good place to start because they start you out without having to learn any programming. They supply you with all the assets, so you don't have to create them. And you can go in and just get started in it, build a 2D game, a 3D game, and as you work your way up, it gets a little bit harder, and eventually they'll get you into scripting, which is or coding, and that's in the C# language. But you can do a lot without having to learn C#. You can get started and do quite a bit of prototyping if you want to, without having to do that, learn that language. Some of the topics that you might learn about Unity would include designing scripting, which is C#, audio, how to use audio, how to attach audio to different objects. So you might have audio, some of the built-in objects have the cameras have like the one that's where you walk around has like a walking audio. So as you move your character around and walk, it already has the walking sound built in of footsteps. There's another one for a car that has all the sounds built in for the car as you move the car. So you could learn how to attach your own sounds. When you click on something, if you turned a doorknob, for example, that you built, it would make a door click sound. You could learn how to design user interfaces, which would be everything would be around the game space. So that might be how it displays the scores, how you control different things. Navigation would include, in Unity, what you're building are scenes. So each, or levels, they would correspond to levels. So how to get back and forth between those levels, for example, might be one thing you would learn. Physics, there's all kinds of physics that can be programmed in, how objects interact with each other and how you control them. So if you shoot a bullet, how far does it go? How does it bounce off of the object? Does it penetrate the object? And so on. And animation, and then of course mobile, and then so these are the basic topics that you would go through or could go through. I'm going to skip that slide actually. So I'm going to show some work that was taken from this course, which is a course I recommend from Udemy, if you can get it on sale. This is showing the sale price at $10.99. That 5 hours was yesterday, so it went up in price. Udemy is a great place to go to get training materials, but only if you get it on sale, because sometimes the courses cost $100, $200. They can be ridiculously priced at full retail, but they always have sales, and they always have things for between $9 and $15. So if you sign up at Udemy and you wait, you'll start getting emails, and they'll tell you when different things are on sale. And usually the average price is around $10 to $11. So this is a 2-hour course. What I liked about this course was it got you up and running really quickly. And I'll show you what it's going to teach you basically. It had no programming in it. It's using all the built-in assets. So if you want to kind of really get started quickly and you don't mind spending $10, this is a good course to go to. Other places that you can go for training are, of course, on Unity. And then our own lynda.com, if you're a student here. I would say also, as far as the length of this course, what was nice about this was you could do it in an afternoon. So you would get, if you have a free Saturday or Sunday afternoon, you can get in and work through the whole thing and come out with a working knowledge of how to use Unity. Lynda.com, sometimes I find they have some really good courses, but sometimes it varies from instructor to instructor. But they're free if you're an ESC student, so that's an advantage there. So in this course, one of the things you could learn to do is to basically, one of the very first things you do is create a maze, a complex maze from a single cube. You start out with a cube, you duplicate it, you change the shape of the cube, you change the location of the cube, and you work around until you have a complex maze created. And then you add some spotlights that are built in. These are all tools that are built into Unity, don't require any programming. There's a point light, there's a way to put in a camera so that you can walk around and it makes the footstep sounds. And it looks like this when it's actually playing. So in Unity, you have the previous view is sort of your workspace view, and if you click on the play button, then you can actually test and play the game right there inside of Unity. So if this were a live scene, I'd be able to use my keyboard controls to walk around this maze and see what it looks like, and I would hear the footstep sounds while I was doing that. So it has built-in cameras of different types. So there's like a first-person camera, which is what you see here. There's a third-person camera that where you would stand and you would sort of back away from a character, sort of like what we have right now in Kitely, or at least in my view, where I see myself in front of me, and I move around. That would be a third-person view. But if I rolled my mouse button, I could actually get to a first-person view in the Firestorm viewer. They had built-in textures, so any kind of texture that you have that you might want to apply, from outdoor type of textures, natural textures, to man-made textures, or you can make your own. This tutorial, they supply you with them. And so you can make things that look like realistic structures. There's a brick texture. You learn how to apply that to the cubes so that they're the correct size, and they're not too big and they're not too small. Then the other thing which is in this tutorial, but again, there's probably other tutorials at Unity that may do similar things. You learn how to make an island. And this is using a special terrain game object that allows you to essentially paint on depressions. So if you had valleys, and you could paint those in, or if you had mountains, you could paint those in. And then also what you see here is a water texture which is applied, and it actually, when you do that, when you create a depression in the terrain, the water actually flows into it. So in the middle you see a lake where the water, because the plane for the water was at the same, slightly lower than the plane for the terrain, it just sort of flows in when I create a depression. And I was able to like paint in the shoreline around the edges of this terrain, and then paint in the mountains. And then you'll see that the mountains actually have a texture, like a rock texture in them. So here's a rendered view playing the game. And so in this exercise, you use a pre-built car model, which you can drive around. The car makes sounds. If you speed up, it sounds like it's speeding up. If you suddenly hit the back key, the tires squeal as if you're hitting the brakes, and it slows down. You can drive it around. It makes acceleration sounds with the engine sound, and it uses the standard ASWD keys, which are standard for gaming, or the arrow keys, and that's all pre-programmed into this particular model. It's all built in, so you don't really have to do anything to get started and create a little place to drive around in. And so it's a fun way to get started with Unity without having to worry too much about programming. So now the other thing you can do with these is, once you create a game, you can build and run it. So you have a wide variety of places to take your games, and these are would be all standalone games, single player. And so one of them is WebGL. So I can generate a 3D game, all the files necessary to run a 3D game on the web. So you do build and run. It creates a folder filled with all those files. You would take that, you would upload that to your web host, and then you could send that link out to whoever, and they could go on and play the game online as a single-player game. Now, there might be some performance issues. The more complex, the more textures, that kind of thing. You'd have to see how that plays out on the web and how much it could handle. But a simple game maze like this would play fairly well, I think, on the web. And then this is just showing. It's hard to see this. It's hard to see the WebGL. That was actually a screenshot from my browser, and that's how it appears inside your browser window. This is a screenshot of a standalone Windows app. So again, it's like you build and run, you choose Windows, Linux, or Mac, and it creates a file folder filled with an application. You can double click on it, it opens up, and you've got your game running on your screen, on your computer. So you could also take that and distribute that if you want to, CD or whatever, how you choose to distribute it. And some other people could play it. So it's basically the same game. Over on the left, you can kind of see the file structure. If you look closely, It has foundations, is what you actually double click on to run and play the game, and then there's the different files that go with it. So if you want to get to the point where you can create a multiplayer game, the first thing you have to do is get comfortable with the Unity interface. So going through a couple tutorials will help you to do that. You need to take enough courses so that you're comfortable creating scenes, working with the various materials. So that would be things that might apply colors or textures, working with the cameras and the lighting, the different things that are there. And part of that also will include getting those things in to Unity, because not everything is automatically installed in Unity when you actually first start it up, but you can go out and get those assets and bring them in. So, and there's reasons why you don't want to have everything. That all takes up space. The more assets you bring in, the bigger the game size is going to be, the bigger the files are going to be. So that creates some issues. You ultimately would only want to bring in what you need to bring in. But when you're starting out, it's okay to sort of follow the instructions. It's just say bring in all the trees, even though you might only use one tree. But you can be selective about what you bring in. Understanding what prefabs are, which is a way of constructing game objects. Usually they're complex game objects made out of more than one thing. That's basically a way of grouping these objects together and then using that to spawn something. Often that's the way it's used. So you might, for example, make a bullet object that's a prefab, and that might have you would use that to spawn multiple bullets. So as you're shooting something, you're not loading one actual bullet at a time. It's sort of creating clones of itself, clones of the prefab. And each one of those is a child bullet coming out at whatever you're shooting at. You also would probably want to know how to add simple scripts or pre-built scripts to the game objects, and adding something called components. So these would be things that would be taught in some of these courses that you would work your way through, so that you get comfortable enough so that when you get into the intermediate courses, you'll know what they're talking about. So the tutorial that I suggest if you want to create a multiplayer game that's free is the one that's on Unity. There are some on Udemy, and there may be some, I haven't checked lynda.com to see what they have. But this one works with the Unity multiplayer environment, and it takes you through, and it's intermediate because you need to know how to do some of the things which I just talked about in the previous slide, how to get them in, because it just assumes you know that. So it might say add a component to this game object. So you need to know how to do that, because it's going to assume you know how to go and add and find a network component, for example, and how to pick the right one and get that added correctly. You can work through this probably 2 afternoons. If you're diligent, maybe 3. As long as you're comfortable with the interface. And so let's talk a little bit about what happens in a network game that's different from a standalone game. So in a standalone game, you've got a single player, they downloaded the application, it's sort of like software that's running on somebody's computer. So with a network game, you might have 2 games. Somebody's your friends, different location, across the county, across the state. They have the game loaded on their computer. You've got the game loaded on your computer. And so you two want to play a game across the internet. So you both have local clients. They have the game objects for the game in them. They have the game environment. They have all the assets, all the textures, all the programming scripts to go with it. All that stuff's built in locally. And it's not unlike what we have here in Firestorm, where basically Firestorm is the local client. So when you go into Marion Island, what it does is it loads all the assets for Marion Island in onto your computer, so that you get better response time. So the reason you want to have all this stuff needs to be or should be on your computer as opposed to being up on the network, because it takes time to get things off of a network. So the more things you can have in your local environment and your local client, like in Firestorm or in the game, the better performance you're going to have in your game. So the things that change in the game, so like your player might be one, you as a player moving around. And I'm using the first person shooter because that's sort of what, or the shooter environment, because that's what the sample does. It's not that I have a particular fondness of shooters one way or the other. It's just what they use as the example. So you're moving around, your friend's moving around, you're shooting bullets, he's shooting bullets. If the game is not network aware, then you don't see, you could both be sort of in the same place, but not seeing what's happening on the in the game world. You're both sort of in your own separate but parallel universes of the game world. So what you have to do is to make your game objects, any game object that's going to move or change in gameplay needs to be synchronized for all users. So the illustration on the screen is basically saying you've got a player, an enemy, and player 2 in client 1. The same thing's in client 2. As things change, if player 1 moves, the server is what helps keep things synchronized between client 1 and client 2. So player 2 sees player 1 move, and player 1 sees player 2 move, and if there's an enemy out there that they're both fighting, you both see it moving. So everything's kept in synchronization, including things like shooting. So if you're shooting something and it dies and it disappears, then that's all kept in managed. So in Unity, network game objects have what's called a network identity component that helps it to talk to the server. And the game itself has a network manager which helps to synchronize the creation and destruction of different game objects, such as bullets or other things like that that might appear or disappear, enemies that appear. When you go over a trap door, an enemy appears, for example. Then that would be managed by the network manager so that you both see that. If it were some kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons game. So you just go. This shows on my screen. Okay, so this shows on my screen on my computer for testing purposes. What you can do when you go through this tutorial is actually run 2 different versions of the game on your computer. It's really better if you have 2 screens, but I have this set up as 1 screen and it would still work. So basically what we're looking at here is this very simple tutorial that creates enemies, which are the black characters with mohawks, and then 2 players. So on one screen, the blue player is on one side, on the right side, on the foreground screen. That would be a player, and the other player is in white. And then in the Unity window, which is also running as running the game, it's reversed. So if I were to move, depending which screen I'm in, if I were to move the player, it would update the same on the other screen. As I move the player on one screen, it would update on the other. As I destroyed an enemy on one screen, it would be destroyed on the other one. We would see bullets. If I shot bullets, then the other person sees it on their screen. So the network manager, this is just an example of what it looks like. So the network manager, this is just an example of what it looks like. And I'm not going to try to explain everything that's on here, but one of the things you see here on the screen would be the prefabs. Spawnable prefabs are bullets and enemies. So the way this game is set up, when I press the spacebar key, it spawns a bullet from a location which is where the gun is. The gun is actually just a cylinder. So it spawns the bullet out of that, and it gives it a vector or a direction, and it travels at a certain fixed speed. So in that direction, and then after a certain amount of time, there's a control in the script that destroys the bullet. And then the same thing with enemies. So as enemies are in this game spawn right at the beginning, and they're static. They don't do anything. But you could just as easily program those so that they were able to move around sort of as non-player characters and sort of maybe interact with you. Maybe if you got closer, they moved away, something like that. You could program all of that kind of logic into that. Let's go to player prefab. So here in the player prefab, there's what's called a network transform script. And that one basically is what updates the server with your location. So if you move, it sends that information out to the server, which then sends it out to the other clients. So and there's a health script which also shows your health. So if in this game it's sort of set up so that you can shoot the other player too. So if I'm being shot at by the other player, my health drops, and that script has a network component. It says network send interval 0.1, so it keeps updating my health constantly out to the server and out to the other players so that they can see my little health bar at the top changing to red as they shoot me. So they get this immediate feedback that they're hitting me with a bullet. And then in the bullet prefab inspector, we see another transform script, which basically is sending the information back about where it is. Transform means includes things like location. If there was a size change, something like that, it would send all. Those are all considered transformations. So in this case, we're really talking about just the location of the bullet, and it keeps updating that bullet location back to the server where it then sends that information out to all the other clients. And then to make this a multiplayer game that you can play across the internet, Unity offers, now on the inspector, I'm not going to go back to it, but next to the inspector is a services tag. And in the services means Unity services. And one of the Unity services is the multiplayer service, which enables you to set up internet gameplay for up to 20 people for free. Although you could have a maximum of 20. So you could have, let's say, 2 different games, each with 10. And then you've used all your allotment up. So it doesn't have to be 20 people just coming into one game, although it could be. So if you wanted to set up something for like a class, if your class was small enough, then you could set it up so up to 20 people could come in and interact in that space for free without having to do anything. Now, there's a big caution on this because unfortunately Unity is phasing this service out. So there's about 2 years, I think if I read it correctly, maybe 3, that this service will be available. And it may not be supported after the 2018 versions of Unity. So that's something to be, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, what some alternatives will be. But that's something to be aware of. It's still kind of a good option if you just want to get started and you don't. It's probably the easiest way to get started with this without having to fiddle around with incorporating a third-party service. So I'd suggest using it. Just don't get too married to it because you might have to revise all of your game scripting for something new later on down the road. But it would be good for some prototypes when you're learning. Now there's something, I'm pointing this out. There's the way that you turn on, once you set up the multiplayer services, as you go through the tutorial, you learn how to use a special heads-up display for testing your game on your computer. So you can set one up to be a client and one to be a server or a host rather, and one to be a client. That's all on your local computer, and that's where you can kind of test out the gameplay by clicking back and forth between the screens to see if it's working over here. If I move this and I shoot, and I click over on this screen, I move this and I shoot. They're both working. It's updating correctly. That's the local way to do it. It's not real clear, which is why I put this in here. It's not really clear how to actually set up the internet game. So if you have two computers at home, what you would do is you would go through the tutorial, you get it all set up, you would test it out locally on one computer, and then take and do a build and run to create a client, put it on a flash drive, copy that folder over with all that information in it to another computer, and then you and somebody else, or just you, could then connect those two computers together over the internet and actually play the game on the internet. Or by using the internet. So the way you would do that, just to review it quickly, is instead of following your instructions for using the host and the client, you would click on the Enable Matchmaker, and you would create an internet match on one computer, and then on your other computer you would do Find Internet Match, and then you would join. So as long as you set up this game inside of the Unity multiplayer for whatever number of players you want to use, someone has to go in and initiate the first step to create the internet match, but then after that everybody else can join in and play wherever they are in the world. Just go to the next slide. So one of the things that you may or may not have noticed, as I talked about, is I didn't talk about voice and chat. And so we're kind of used to, from this environment that we're in here in Firestorm, it does a lot of stuff for us automatically. I'm able to talk to you now. I'm able to chat with you. As Eileen said, I guess the audio portion is more recent, 5 years or so, but it's all handled for us. It doesn't. So you can go and create your islands and do whatever you want to in your islands. You don't have to worry so much about whether or not you're going to be able to talk to the people that are on your island or chat with them, because that's all handled by Firestorm automatically. It's all part of Kitely. We don't have to worry about it. It's not quite that way in Unity. So in Unity, if you want to have voice, real-time voice, or you want to have a text chat function, then you have to go to a third party and add it. And of course, there's always a cost with these things. But there is one out there, one of them that I haven't checked them all, but one of the products that's out there is called Photon. Their URL is at the bottom. You can get it if you download the slide. And they do have free trials with limited numbers of players. They seem to be mostly around 20 players maximum in a game. And this is also an alternative for using, for testing multiplayer games. Unity, so as the Unity multiplayer is phased out, you could turn to this product as an alternative, and it has a free version for that as well. So for students in particular, there will still be options out there, or even faculty that want to develop sort of little small pilots. There are options out there at this point that will be free for multiplayer and for voice and chat. It's more complex. It's going to be another level of complexity to add this to your game. So just to make you aware of that. So it's not as simple as it is, let's say, here when we're here in Kitely. And then another product, just to show you what's out there, is the Dissonance voice chat. that one's a flat fee for $75, and you can add voice chat to your game, and it's available, but you would still need to have the network side taken care of. So right now, you could use multiplayer and dissonance voice chat, but down the road, that might not work. And then you'll have to still get your multiplayer from somewhere else and incorporate that in. So the Unity Store, also just to point out, the Unity Store has a lot of free and reasonably priced assets available that cover just about anything that you need to do. So you can get free buildings, you can get free models of cars, all kinds of stuff, airplanes, different things, furniture if you need to. All of that's available in Unity in their store. So you don't have to learn how to do 3D modeling in addition to learning how to use the game engine program. Those are available for varying levels of prices. There are a number of pretty good assets available for under $20. So it's not like you have to spend a fortune if you're trying to build a game. You can usually go out and find something for a reasonable price. So we've reached the end of the talk. My contact information is up there, email. So if you have questions, you can email me, of course. The URL is up there as well for the PowerPoint, if you didn't get it before. And I'm teaching a course, I'll do a little plug for it, called Creating Communication, which is spelled wrong, interestingly enough, and meaning with virtual game worlds. And that's in the spring. And it's going to be very similar to what I just covered, at least in the technical side, where we will go through and create a network game. You'll have the freedom to sort of not have to build with little capsule men as a tutorial. We'll move beyond that, and you'll be able to build something a little more complex than that, that's networked, and you can test it out. And it could be a learning game or whatever, but it'll be available for different people to play on the internet across different locations. So I guess that's it. Does anyone have questions? I don't think I have to look at this.
Actually, I just have a question. That sounds like an interesting course. Is that the game design course in the graduate program, or is that something different, that the course you just mentioned?
This is going to be a different course than the game design program. The game design in the graduate program is focused on learning and simulations and games for learning. So this will be a little broader and more focused. It'll have some theory side to it in addition to the applied side. So we'll be looking at a little bit, thinking a little bit about.
But can they take it for graduate credit? I want to see if we could fit it into Mallet. Okay. Okay. Good.
Yes, it's a cross.
Oh, okay.
I believe it's set up.
Well, these folks will be talking to their advisors too, so that's something to know.
Yeah, part of it's. There's a residency that's happening on the undergrad side, so it's part of that.
Okay, that's good. So, do they physically have to go to that residency to be able to take that course? Okay.
That residency is a virtual residency. So
okay.
Participate in that part of it, no, because we have people coming from all over the world for that.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's open to the
I'll
international
get more info
program,
from you on that too, and follow up.
It's the digital residency. It's being run by, Rihanna Rogers is coordinating that along with Manuka Case, the coordinators of multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and digital studies. And I'll also be contributing an undergraduate course to that, which is the digital storytelling course we'll be connecting in as well. So I believe that we have a cross-selection of studies that will be a part of the program and integrated into residency, and that there will be some crossover opportunity for graduate studies.
Wonderful.
With this as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. But in the meantime, I interrupted too. I'm sorry, Nicola. Questions from the audience? Yes, it is under term prep. Well, I should say actually I've been working a few bugs out of that. We had some issues with courses that didn't get listed. I'll be not sure who everybody's coordinator. Yes, the courses for the spring are listed, and we just had a few that had to be updated. So you'll be having conversations with your advisors. And for those of you, all of you here are pretty much still in your first semester. So before you sign up, be sure you talk with your advisor, because we have some core courses we want you to really get before you get to the advanced ones. And what you were seeing here today tend to be the more advanced courses. We have the the one where you develop your own virtual reality environment like this. We have Mark's course with the game design. Nicola has several courses that she has in virtual immersion and identity, so I think you'll want to talk to your advisor too before you sign up. And your advisor will be getting out some notes, and I'll be getting out a general note about what's available. And we do have our catalog that shows you broadly what's available, and we'll be getting out a reminder about what's available this semester. So we do owe you that. And before you register for undergraduate courses, we want to, we want to be sure you're getting credited towards the Mallet program as well. So I think we'll have some conversations with your advisor if you don't see it right in the Mallet catalog. So we'll talk to you about that. But I hope you're all intrigued and want to get more involved with these different programs that we have. And not to diminish, we also have our core. We have the Learning Management System course, which Mark generally runs. Dr. Alan has a course for advanced design after you're finished your core. So we have a lot more that we really haven't discussed here. We were just presenting kind of the courses that are moving towards the next step of design, but we have many core courses still, and we'll be inviting you to take a lot of them. Yeah. Oh, Nicola, did you want to mention your identity courses? I think you're running that this spring. Now, Scott, who's asked, I don't know where, yeah.
I'll be happy to just mention that. So for those of you interested in exploring virtual and immersive to a different level, so Dr. O'Connor's courses are really, they're hands-on virtual practicums. You really learn what it takes to build virtual worlds, and you get to get in there and dig in there and build them. And then my advanced learning design course is really not just virtual worlds design. It could be any type of, it's basically integrated learning project design, where you can use a variety of tools to integrate a project of your choice into whether it be a virtual worlds environment or other 2D or 3D environments. I'm teaching right now digital media arts and technologies, where you get to do the kinds of arts projects I described earlier. That will be you'll be able to take that again next fall, because right now it's running and it won't be offered in the spring. In the spring, digital identity and virtual communities allows you to do some really fun ethnographic integrated participant observation research in virtual communities. You learn all about virtual communities as you experiment with having different avatars and going into different communities and then describing your experience. And you can do that in a variety of different ways, in all kinds of different virtual world environments, including games. I had one student choose the World of Warcraft as their primary environment. So anyway, that would be what you would be able to do if you take on the Digital Identity and Virtual Communities course. There are lots of opportunities for the type of exploration that you could do in that particular course. It would be individualized to your interests.
Okay, so I'm hoping that we've inspired you with a number of questions about directions you can take, the specific courses that might fill out your degree plan. We will have you developing a plan. I think pretty much everyone I see here is fairly new, so they're developing plans, or we have a few that are fairly far along. As a matter of fact, Jennifer and Jeremy and Steph, I don't see Steph here right now, are actually going on this residency had a follow-up piece for those who wanted to go on in either augmented reality, gaming, or whatever. Well, there are some prereqs, and I think that's where I think you want to have that conversation with your advisor. And so we'll be looking, although you can look in the catalog, and if there is a required prerequisite, it's listed. Most of our courses, certainly the Developing Virtual Worlds Practicum does not have a prereq, but we do assume a certain amount of ability to work independently. We're not going to be hand-holding you and telling you exactly which button to click. We have tutorials, etc. But I think everybody in this group, from what I know, is quite capable of joining most of our courses. And if the prereq exists, it would be listed in the catalog. So, yeah, I do think that we are able to scaffold in enough so that you can get a good head start. And we'll know pretty early on if you're really not up to it, and we'd let you know. But I want to thank everybody, and I will ask you all, if you can mark on your calendar, I'll try to get the date out. The follow-up to this is going to be actually December 5th, and we're running it a little bit differently than we had originally intended. We have 3 people that are going to be going off to develop augmented reality, and I'm going to put a link in as you leave, so you can see what I developed this summer. And it's not into the entire area, but you're going December 5th, Richard, and I will get out some notifications. We're going to have several of our students who are completing their program are going to be showcasing the projects that they did for their final project. And we're going to have Jennifer, Jeremy, and Steph showcasing what they will have done as a result of their augmented reality course. And Mark gave you a good segue to show that when you're in virtual environments, you can get preloaded environments that have a lot of features already there. So you're not starting as much from scratch, but these folks are going to be starting from scratch and developing an application in Unity with a plugin that allows them to bring in augmented reality. So they're going to be challenged, and we'll be inviting you to hear how far they got. And it's going to be very unique to each person's situation. So I'll send that out again, but December 5th, it's in the evening. It's just coming by and talking to them. We won't be just lecturing at you. It will be they're explaining to you what they did. And so it actually will probably be right here in Kitely, right on Marion Island. We're going to set up a little booth. And remember, you can walk around the buildings here on Marion. If you go into the buildings, you'll see a lot of work that former students have done in a variety of different contexts. So we want to thank you. I'm going to put in the chat a text. And yeah, oh, thank you. I'm going to also, at the end of this, I will send out through email as well. If you could give us some feedback so we can keep on growing this concept, improving it. And thank you all for coming. I know Saturday is a busy day, but for some of you, this will be your homework, and I'll be looking forward to your homework back in the class. And we want to start those conversations so that we can get you into some very interesting degree program planning where we'll start figuring out what courses fit best for your particular needs. So you'll be having those conversations with your advisors. Now, if you wouldn't mind looking at me for 3 minutes, the real me, and you'll see why I like the avatar me, but at the end of it, the very tail end, you don't have to watch all 3 minutes, look at about 2 minutes, you'll actually see some of the avatars that I got to hover over my deck of cards. And we'll use that to see where Jennifer and Jeremy and Steph get. They're going to be doing some very different work. But I thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a great weekend. And we'll be sending out a review so that you can give us some feedback. But have fun the rest of the day. Thank you for coming, and I hope that you've all had an opportunity to get to know each other a little better and to get to know some of the faculty. So good night, everybody. I have been taping this. I'll be leaving, and I will make the tapes available later. So thank you, and thank you very much to the faculty who gave of their Saturdays to come in and present. So good afternoon, everyone.